Science fiction has always been a staple of televised broadcasting, with the mass popularity of Star Trek making it expectable on just how entertaining the genre can be. With even some modern takes like Disney Plus's The Mandalorian or Netflix's Stranger Things continuing the success of sci-fi appeal in today's audiences. However, one show doesn't get enough love, and this show is Love, Death, and Robots. Love, Death, and Robots is an animated anthology, something akin to
Twilight Zone.
This Netflix original is actually an anthology series that celebrates not only the science fiction genre, but also horror and animation, not to mention how graphic it can really get. And I mean, it's graphic. The show has so many magnificent episodes like The Secret War, Three Robots, Lucky 13, Good Hunting, Blind Spot, but most importantly, Zima Blue. While it would be absolutely ludicrous to talk about all these episodes in depth, it would be better to briefly mention the most notable parts of the first 5 mentioned and then examine Zima Blue with a little bit more depth, as it is arguably the best episode of Season 1. The Three Robots is a cute and comedic short about robots discovering a post-apocalyptic human society and trying to piece the past together. It almost acts like a commentary on human culture, as the robots fail to understand what humans used to do. In fact, they comment on how inferior we are to them, which is pretty funny. Not to mention their own developed robot slang and pre-established relationships between the bots. In a way, they speak to each other just like how we would speak to a close friend.
Try!
Well, what the hell am I supposed to do with this thing?
You know? Boing boing?
No way!
Stop being a whiny pussy and fucking bounce it. Please.
Jeez, calm down your motherboard. Okay.
Oh man, this is so exciting!
The really ironic thing about this episode is even though it features robots, they feel really human at heart, and that's pretty cool. The Secret War is about a Russian mission during the World War II era. A squadron of Russian soldiers are sent to fight a dangerous horde of monsters that were summoned by the Red Army during World War I, who failed to control them. This episode has some of the best use of sound and atmosphere. The stillness of the forest, the roaring monsters, the gunfire, the intense music, it all helps masterfully piece this short together. Good Hunting is a really awesome example of narrative storytelling in this show. It's really hard to go into any sort of detail in this one. It has so many twists and turns. But when this episode comes on, viewers will be glued to their screen as this tale of love and revenge, and surprisingly, a lot of robots for industrial era China is one of the most memorable episodes of the show. Lucky 13 is a tale about a rookie pilot in a future war who has been assigned to Ship 13. It's a gunship that has lost 2 different crews on separate missions. In the episode, it is described as a coffin with wings. However, during the rookie pilot's first mission, she and Lucky 13 save the other squads from an enemy ambush. Cinematography in this episode is phenomenal. Like The Secret War, the camera work helps convey the intensity of this unnamed future war, but also conveys the relationship between the pilot and Lucky 13, which is implied to be somewhat alive, most likely to having an onboard AI. This episode is highly underrated and should be one to look forward to for future viewers of the show. Blind Spot feels like an homage to Saturday morning cartoons with an adult take. High-impact violence, foul language, some cheesy dialogue here and there, the faceless enemy soldiers, and the over-the-top vehicles feel inspired by G.I. Joe in a way. The episode ends in what leaves us wanting, and it kind of feels like a pilot episode of what could be something bigger. Personally, I do hope something does come out of it. Finally, Zima Blue is the epitome of LDR. The Season 1 finale is what many would say is the best episode in the whole series. Everything about Zima Blue is fantastic. Its sound, its visuals, its narrative, animation, etc. All of it makes for one perfect 10 out of 10 episode for the finale of the first volume. Zima Blue is an adaptation of author Alastair Reynolds' short story of the same name. It is actually the second short story of his to be adapted in Volume 1, the first being the second episode in the series, Beyond the Aquila Rift. Alastair's story is very intriguing as it starts up the mystery from the get-go. When Zima Blue starts, we want to ask the same questions as the reporter. Just who exactly is Zima? The reporter's desire to interview Zima and understand what he is all about acts as a powerful narrative catalyst to the episode. She sets up Zima for us by giving us a brief history about him and his mysterious art projects. We are also posed with another narrative catalyst, or a question. What is Zima's blue period, and what does it mean to him? That's another question the reporter desires to find out. When she meets Zima, it is revealed that he hasn't spoken to the press in over 100 years. This raises so many questions and therefore makes the viewers want to find out more about this mysterious artist. LDR acts on the practice of using multiple protagonists in most of the episodes featured in Volume 1. Zima Blue follows that practice by centering the narrative initially from the reporter's perspective, which is used as exposition for the story. And then it transitions to Zima's perspective when he explains the meaning behind his blue period. In Jeremy G. Butler's narrative chapter in his book, Television, Visual Storytelling and Screen Culture, he explains that while TV has had shows centering around central protagonists, like Handmaid's Tale, it is more common for TV to use a pair of protagonists or an ensemble cast. In Zima Blue's case, it obviously opts to go for the more traditional pairing of two characters who are the episode's central protagonists. With the protagonists established, the plot becomes the next focus. In the 8th chapter on page 240 of the book Writing Movies, The Practical Guide to Creating Stellar Screenplays, Tommy Jakin writes about leading into a plotline. The first item is to introduce the protagonist, or protagonists. These characters have already been established as the reporter and Zima. The second item on the list is to establish the genre. Given the space travel shown in the introduction and Zima's cybernetic upgrades, the genre is clearly science fiction. That wasn't obvious from the show's inclusion of the word robots in its title. Then finally, the plot needs to lead into the inciting incident, which is Zima's blue period, where he just keeps painting blue shapes on his canvases for an unexplained reason. Once again, referencing from Butler's chapter on narrative, specifically the section on motivation, he states that motivation is the constancy of series characters and setting establishes a narrative equilibrium. It is already known the motivation behind the reporter is to get Zima to explain the secrets behind his blue period, and with his explanation, his motivation is revealed. This disturbs the balance of the story as Zima's origins make for an exciting twist. During Zima's monologue about his motivation on the blue period, he talks about a robot that's only job was to clean tiles of its owner's swimming pool. The owner, who was an incredible inventor, upgraded the robot to do more and more tasks as time went on. When the owner passed away, her descendants inherited the robot and kept adding more modifications to the robot, when it eventually became more man than machine. This robot was Zima, and his motivation to create the blue period were the blue tiles he used to clean in the pool all those years ago. The color hue was known as Zima Blue. Zima's monologue is aided by visual storytelling. Instead of having Zima stand and talk to the reporter about the pool cleaning robot, the episode opts to include a flashback sequence. Larry Hama writes an excerpt in the Screenwriting Handbook, Now Write Screenwriting, about animated television and visual storytelling. He says, "What I set out to do was envision the whole piece as a silent movie, so that the character development, important plot points, character objectives, and so on were embedded in the visual and not dependent on characters going into exposition mode." While there is a lengthy dialogue from Zima, watching his evolution from a simple pool cleaning machine to a sentient android helps aid the narrative greatly. Additionally, Zima Blue uses its own color palette filled with deep blues, reds, greens, and grays, and so on to help its general flow. Bruce Block writes how audiences have poor color memory, and if asked to specify a swatch of color, they will be unable to recall the right color, which gives an advantage to the creator's control of the narrative. Zima Blue uses its color to its advantage by blending its colors together and creating this calming, non-hostile environment that holds our attention with each scene. The episode finally concludes when Zima reveals he desires to once again become the pool cleaning robot, and that over the years he has modified himself to do as such. This resolution comes in the form of Zima's final art piece. In the climax of the episode, Zima reveals he has excavated the pool he once used to clean that was long since buried beneath the earth after those 100-odd years. The following night, in front of a large audience, Zima dives into the pool and his body falls apart, piece by piece, as he regresses back to his old pool cleaner model. where we see him start to polish a blue tile. Shortly after, the episode concludes. Mentioned prior, LDR Volume 1 sends off its finale with this episode. This incredible collection of shorts, filled to the brim with unique, strange, and crazy narrative, is something that should not be slept on. From 3 robots to Zima Blue, viewers should expect to have fun while tuning into this Netflix original. According to a recent report, LDR has been renewed by Netflix and a Volume 2 is in development. While the release date is to be announced, one should expect more mind-blowing content.